us. The one and only Floyd Money Mayweather will join us live. You know, Max and Stephen A. can't wait to chop it up with him. But first, Mike McCarthy is going to have his hands full this weekend if Andy Dalton can't go against the Eagles. The Cowboys coach was asked if preparing young quarterback Ben DiNucci will be a tougher task. Take a listen.
Is it harder?
Yeah.
I mean, was I not supposed to laugh at that? I mean, it's kind of hard to tell with your mask on, so I didn't know if you were serious. Yeah, it's a bit harder to prepare with a first-year quarterback, than Andy. Yes.
All right, Damian Woody back here with us. Damian, good to see you. Stephen A., I'm going to start with you here. Who do you think's under more pressure in this game? Would you say it's Mike McCarthy or Carson Wentz?
Well, first of all, easily, Carson Wentz. Easily.
Okay.
So let me get this straight, y'all. Let me get this straight. So the Dallas Cowboys have the worst defense in football, okay? The worst run defense in football, one of the top five worst defenses in yards allowed, the very worst in points allowed, the very worst in rushing yards allowed. That's on the defensive side of the ball. Can't get to the quarterback, can't sack the quarterback, can't defend anybody in the secondary, et cetera, et cetera. And then we get to the offensive side of the ball. Dak Prescott is gone. Ezekiel Elliott clearly has nosedived, primarily because you got an offensive line that's completely obliterated injury-wise, and as a result, you got some subs that just ain't ready for the challenge, okay? All right? With a new coach that the players ain't feeling to begin with an owner/GM that's cussing out radio hosts, all right? And let me get this straight. Mike McCarthy's the one under pressure? Can you imagine what Max will be here saying about Carson Wentz if Carson Wentz loses to these Cowboys? I mean, who's the quarterback? I have to look it up because I'll be damned if I knew. Who's the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys?
Ben DiNucci?
Ben DiNucci. Could you say that again? DiNucci. First time I heard that name as a quarterback in the National Football League. DiNucci.
I think I used to cop Ben DiNucci's back in elementary school.
DiNucci, right. Yeah, really? I mean,
They were sunglasses,
so
right?
let me get this straight. Carson Wentz can go into a football game against the hated rival division nemesis known as the Dallas Cowboys that's got subs on your offensive line, a dude named DiNucci, not even Andy Dalton, DiNucci
like a nice
playing quarterback, okay? All right, and a defense that's virtually non-existent with a coach that the players ain't feeling, a defensive coordinator that's getting Tabasco sauce caught in his eye during press conference, and an owner/GM that's cussing out radio hosts to show his attitude and more fire than the players showed when Andy Dalton got knocked upside his head and Carson Wentz can afford to lose to that team? Please, he better win this game. If there was ever a game that Carson Wentz had better win, could you imagine?
You're so disrespectful.
Could you
Don't you feel bad for these Cowboys?
Listen. Could you imagine, Max, if Carson Wentz, if you come in here Monday and Carson Wentz lost to Ben DiNucci, could you imagine that? Please.
As I recall, you used to break up Vasco's back in the day with DiNucci's.
Say what?
You used to break up Vasco's back in the day, little Latigras and Vasco's and some DiNucci's.
This is hilarious. It's not even close. All the pressure's on Carson Wentz.
Look,
he better not lose this game.
You made a very good case, but you're wrong. You know why? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen already. If Carson Wentz somehow lost this game, all the Carson Wentz apologists would come out of the woodwork. Everyone's hurt.
Not for this one.
Oh, yeah. Every time it's the same thing. Carson Wentz was squeaking by teams just like the Dallas Cowboys last season. Washington, the Giants, squeaking by those teams. And every single quarterback in the division last year, and we're talking about a rookie in Daniel Jones, backups on Washington, all those quarterbacks did better against the teams that Wentz was squeaking by than Wentz did. And yet I used to come on every Monday and y'all were talking about how great Wentz is. He should be in the MVP conversation. I already know what Wentz is going to do against the Cowboys. What he always does. He'll have one amazing Patrick Mahomes level throw. He'll have 3 or 4 good ones, and then the rest will be poor execution and questionable decisions. That should still be enough to beat the Cowboys. But if it's not, Stephen A. Smith, Dan Orlovsky, maybe you, Damian, are going to come out and start defending Carson Wentz. So, in fact, while it should be, listen, is there pressure on McCarthy? Well, you just said it. He's dead last in everything on the defensive end. Doesn't that have something to do with the head coach? Isn't he presiding over this team? And on the offensive side, yep, he lost his quarterback. He lost his backup. He still has Ezekiel Elliott, who somehow forgot how to play football all of a sudden. He still has offensive weapons and receivers. You would think, like, it's one thing to lose. It's another thing to lose the way McCarthy has been losing. They have to be at least competitive.
Max. Stephen, I don't even know how to respond to this. I think, you know what? I honestly think that this conversation, you have replaced Tom Brady with Carson Wentz because your level of obsession with Carson Wentz now is just through the roof.
Get him, Damian.
How in
the hell could you possibly say in this scenario that more pressure is on Mike McCarthy than it is on Carson Wentz? Stephen A. already talked about how everything in Dallas is in disarray. The defense can't stop a nosebleed. They don't have Dak Prescott. The backup quarterback is out. Stephen A., what's this quarterback name again?
Ben DiNucci.
Ben DiNucci. A rookie quarterback, third-string quarterback, is in for the Dallas Cowboys, and you're going to sit here and talk about the pressures on Mike McCarthy? Why do you hate Carson Wentz so much?
I don't actually. I have high hopes for Carson Wentz.
I'm just trying to figure this thing out with you. What is your obsession with Carson Wentz right now?
The only obsession is I see elite top 5 talent and mid-pack results, and I'm being honest about it. I appear to be the only one. Look, if they somehow lose to Dallas, you guys are all going to come out here and start making excuses. But everything you just said about the Cowboys, you know what the worst part about it is? When you see everyone's dead last in defense, and then also they can't do anything offensively, it gives the impression that the team what? Quit, right? This is what we were saying about the Dolphins early last year, and to Flores' credit, Coach got that team by the end of the season to be competitive. But early on, we were all saying, this is an indictment, man. They don't look like they want to play for him. He turned that around. Either McCarthy turns that around. People forgetting, early last season, are the Dolphins the worst NFL team of all time? Then they beat the Patriots last game of the season. They're 3-3 now, right? That's because Brian Flores can coach. He has guys playing. But McCarthy's going to have to do the same thing at some point this season. We're going to have to look at the Cowboys and say, that team didn't quit. They're still playing. And the Eagles are a divisional rival. They can't just get rolled like they're not trying.
Max, I get where you're coming from, man. I understand, man. But here's why your argument makes absolutely no sense. Because you have talked about Carson Wentz more than anybody. You've talked about him, Max, when he got them to the playoffs last year with third stringers. You were talking about him and how he's not what he used to be. This year, he started off bad. You made that point, okay? The bottom line is Carson Wentz, you also brought up his money, $109 million guaranteed. You brought up all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden, he's going up against Ben DiNucci.
Oh, my God.
And second, and our offensive line is non-existent. I'm going to repeat it again because it's worth repeating.
What?
Okay? You have no defense, all right? You got a head coach that the players clearly ain't vibing with. You got a defensive coordinator that's got a press conference and has to take a damn near 3-minute break because he gets Tabasco sauce caught in his eye. You got a GM / owner / president of football operations, and this dude is cussing out radio hosts, by the way, showing more toughness than his offensive lineman and team showed when they knocked Andy Dalton upside the head. And you're going to tell me that Carson Wentz can afford to lose to those people?
No, this is what I'm telling you.
There's no way
this is what I'm telling you.
Crucified.
This is what I'm telling you. I agree with everything you just said, but I've been saying this. And if Carson Wentz loses, but I'm the only one. There are only 2 places you'll find the real about Carson Wentz.
God.
Here on First Take from me, and in the front office of Philadelphia, where the Eagles drafted a quarterback in the second round.
But then it makes no sense, Max. If you held him accountable all those other times, What are you going to say if you
I
lose it to
will.
the team?
I want to make sure you do.
How is McCarthy under more pressure than him
Because the team looks
him?
like it quit.
I have 3 things to say. Stephen A., you've had some good rants. I think that might be your best ever. That is hilarious. You brought up
the
hot
universe is
sauce.
kind.
I got hot sauce in my bag. Swag.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Wait, hold up. And Damien, I got one more thing to say. You have the quote of the day, sir. Max has replaced his obsession with Tom Brady for Carson Wentz. I'm done, everybody. When we come back here on First Take, Floyd Money Mayweather is joining us.
You're not a neutral moderator.
All right, guys, get excited. Sunday, prime time football. It is going to be Carson Wentz versus Ben DiNucci. Looking to claim the top spot in the NFC.
Back in '84.
I've never heard of a quarterback.
I love that.
Back in '84.
I mean, I thought Orlovsky was bad enough. The name Orlovsky at the quarterback position. And I love Dan, but a quarterback, if my quarterback's name is Orlovsky, I'm worried. That's just me.
Depends if he can play or not.
That's just me.
All right, well, we just heard everything that was said yesterday. Max, you're really hard on Carson Wentz, but yesterday you said there is more pressure on Mike McCarthy than Carson Wentz. So 24 hours later, Stephen A., we gave him the time.
Yeah, because that was a ridiculous take on this part. I want to see if he's changed his mind.
You changed your mind?
Not at all. Look, the fact of the matter is I'm really hard on Carson Wentz. I'm the only one. There are 2 people hard on Carson Wentz, me and Howie Roseman in the Eagles front office.
Maybe his mother, too.
That's it. Like, Roseman looked at Wentz at the end of last year and said,
ouch.
Well, you know,
He
your
said
moms
maybe
are always,
his mama.
well, I mean,
moms are always hard on his son.
Yeah.
she's saying that, in order to become a professional athlete, you need high standards. There you go.
There you go.
The point is, the Eagles front office looked at Carson Wentz at the end of last year and they said, we got to draft a quarterback. We have to draft a quarterback in the 2nd round. I don't want to hear anyone tell me any nonsense about they need depth at the position. There are veterans floating around that can give you depth. Fitzgerald is, Ryan Fitzpatrick is always available, right? Someone like that is always available. I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about, well, you draft a backup quarterback when you don't need one. You just gave a franchise contract, an elite contract to a 27-year-old quarterback. What do you mean? You're years away from needing to draft his replacement. But they drafted a quarterback in the 2nd round when the best player available, the wideout they needed, C.D. Lamb, they could have packaged that pick and moved up and taken him. They decided not to. So the front office sees more soberly what's going on than anyone else, apparently, but me. Carson Wentz is good for 1 amazing Patrick Mahomes-level throw a game, 3 or 4 good ones, and the rest are questionable at best. Now, Stephen A., Mike McCarthy, everyone's on him. Everyone's on McCarthy, right? The pressure, if Carson Wentz goes out and does what he normally does, by the way, I'm going to take him in DraftKings, I think, this week. Why not? He's playing the Cowboys defense, right? If he loses, or it's not even loses. I don't think that the Eagles are going to lose. But if he doesn't look good, there'll be excuses. Look at all the drop passes. Look at all the injuries. The Cowboys were motivated. They played for their, whatever it is. All I hear week in and week out about Wentz are excuses for his play, which is not bad. It's middle of the pack quarterback play for an elite talent who's being paid like an elite talent. Mike McCarthy, everyone's on him. They're calling for his job. And you, Stephen A., you of all people, you said, fire him now. You don't even want to wait till the end of the season. And you know why you said that? The same reason people were talking about Brian Flores beginning of last year. Because the Dolphins looked like they quit. We were wrong. Brian Flores can coach. Because by the end of the year, they beat the Patriots. And a must-have game for the Patriots, right? But early on, we were saying, is this the worst team ever? The team looks like it quit. And that's what we're saying about the Cowboys now. And if McCarthy, you don't have to win, but if he doesn't get them playing like it looks like they want to win, he's in trouble. Stephen A. Smith will come out here and say, get rid of him this week.
First of all, you're wrong. You're wrong in this respect. First of all, you brought up Brian Flores. You can't compare the 2 situations. Chris Greer, an African-American GM running the Miami Dolphins. Clearly, they were retooling. Obviously, they were accumulating draft picks and unloading players. So when we talked about players that quit, we also knew that the players that they had were relative scrubs compared to the kind of guys that they would accumulate. They were in complete rebuilding mode. They weren't signing dudes to contract. They were unloading contracts. Jerry Jones signing dudes. So the 2 situations don't compare. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm going to say this again. If Carson Wentz loses a game to these Dallas Cowboys, it'll be a disaster. Let me remind everybody, Dallas Cowboys, dead last in points allowed, dead last in rushing yards allowed. One of the top 5 worst teams defense in yards allowed, period. No secondary, barely a pass rush for crying out loud. Linebackers have been injured and debilitated. Their offense, first of all, Dak Prescott is gone. The offensive line, 4 or 5 dudes are subs because their starting 5 is out. You've got all of that going on. You got a head coach, all right, that isn't resonating with the players. You got a defensive coordinator that's hiding in press conferences getting Tabasco sauce in his eye. You know what I'm saying? Knows what the hell.
Hold on, they're going to ask me a question.
Oh, my goodness. I need a break. 3 minutes, okay? You got an owner, GM, and president in Jerry Jones cussing out radio hosts, all right?
Man.
And you have a quarterback who's a third stringer named Ben DiNucci, okay? And you're Carson Wentz, and you go out and lose to that? I assure you, it will be an unmitigated disaster.
Can they lose?